I'm Dr. Lance Morris, and welcome to my weekly YouTube posting. This is number 24 in a sequential series. So here we are with the question, are humans fundamentally good or fundamentally evil? This was literally tearing me apart. You see, the evidence seems overwhelming. Let's look at history. Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Vlad the Impaler, Pol Pot, Ivan the Terrible, Nero, Genghis Khan, Mao Zedong, and Attila the Hun are examples of men that committed unthinkable atrocities against thousands to millions of humans. Let's reflect about the endless wars that color our past. Man's inhumanity to man is legend. We are clearly the most evil, malevolent, violent, and dangerous animal our world has ever seen. Yet, is this a reflection of the human race, or rather sick and powerful individuals? We do seem to warmonger. People seem, so willing to follow our leaders into war, to fight and murder or torture other humans. We, of course, need to demonize our enemies to justify our actions in the name of the right, the just, or God. We choose to honor and praise our war heroes. We generally agree that killing is wrong, but as an officially sanctioned act, it is not only okay, but praiseworthy. Does anyone find this confusing or conflicted in any way? Note that the highest incidence of self-harm, drug addiction, and suicide is in our veteran populations. This, of course, is because of the irreconcilable conflict of normal morality and ethics. I want to make a sidebar comment here. Although women have committed atrocities, this is usually in collusion with men. The most heinous crimes of women pale in comparison to their male counterparts. We will revisit this gender phenomenon in a much broader context shortly. So, can we frame the entire human race as evil? Of course not. We can just as easily cite individuals in our history that reflect the good. Mother Teresa, the Dalai Lama, Jesus, Muhammad, Mahatma Gandhi, Gautama Buddha, Baha'u'llah, and Martin Luther King Jr. are a few examples. Although not necessarily individually, but generally as a species, we seem to emulate the negative, the violent, and the evil. Despite this overwhelming evidence, I contend and believe that our true and authentic nature is inherently good. Of course, the conversation about good and evil is already part of the problem. As we continue this dialogue, you will see where I'm going. I was personally struggling with what many call the dark night of soul. My advantage was a strong and expanding spiritual core. Now more than ever, I needed to fill in the gaps of experience and understanding to wake up to what was really going on and my place and purpose in the universe. I was systematically solving the riddle of my 5 primary principles and the what, when, where, and how questions. I was ready to surrender and allow the universe to guide me and fill me with divine knowing and being. Then, like a bolt of lightning, I was struck. The experience I had still makes my body tingle. I was sitting in my dorm room, University of Alaska, my sophomore year, with a group of friends listening to rock and roll music. Specifically, Marshall Tucker Band's Take the Highway. All of a sudden, I found myself vocally toning. I wasn't singing the lyrics, and the voice inside me seemed to almost have a will of its own. It was my voice, and yet it seemed to be coming from somewhere else. I kept repeating, aumba, aumba, aumba. All of a sudden, everything and everybody had a visible rainbow aura. Aum, A-U-M, or Om, O-M, is a mantra. A mantra is a vocalized, specific frequency that creates a resonance that opens a doorway into an expanded, altered state of consciousness or perception. Although I was familiar with mantras prior to this experience, I really didn't practice using them. After this experience, using mantras became an integral part of my life. At the beginning of this YouTube series, I recommended that you neither believe nor agree with anything I'm sharing. I did suggest a challenge, that you prove for yourself what is real or true. To accomplish this is not merely an exercise of intellect or logic. It requires direct, subjective experience. Throughout this series, I offer a variety of practical and useful tools to enhance your personal subjective experience. The catch is that you must use them. It's like learning to play a musical instrument. For most people, this requires consistent and daily practice. Expanded states of consciousness or spiritual insight or guidance requires this same commitment and discipline. In my dorm room, I was playing vinyl records, and yet I found myself communicating with members of the band in some type of sound language. Somehow, the use of mantra had opened a doorway linking the canned vinyl music to a real-time, open communication dialogue. It was immediately apparent that we were connected into what seemed like a higher level of consciousness. In retrospect, not higher, but expanded. Imagine that consciousness starts as a point of perception. From this point, consciousness expands in a series of concentric circles. These circles expand and contract and expand more and more. This demonstrates that part of the nature of consciousness is a pulsing, expanding waveform. The sound language we were using, I have since come to refer to as USL, Universal Sound Language. The dialogue seemed to meld the USL with normal language, specifically directed at me. The content of the words was both spiritually uplifting and guiding. I found myself in a sea of data, all of which I was able to process and retain. The universe seemed to be offering me two choices: love or power. Without a moment's hesitation, with every fiber of my being, I cried out for love. Please join me next week, and remember to subscribe, like, and share.